What was luxury 10 years back
Yeah.
to what is luxury today in Bangalore?
I can completely customize, personalize it to me. With all due respect, I didn't really find their education system more advanced than India.
So there's a huge scope. How did your experience in IIT Madras help you evolve your mindset?
This has been a great journey so far. In fact, actually,
Okay.
when we went to IIT, right? Actually, I never thought I'll be doing something like this someday, right? I mean, at that time, what was the dream? To probably go to US for higher studies and
Yes.
then settle there. Coming from Hyderabad, that was like a dream for a lot of people, right? I mean, just go to US for a higher education and settle there and probably retire from there, right?
Yes.
That was probably my dream, if you have to call it a dream. But once, in fact, I went to the US, in fact, for a higher education for doing my MBA. After my IIT, I went there. But 2 months into the college, I dropped out and came back because there were a lot of realizations there. I mean, one of the biggest realization was that I don't need to accumulate so many degrees, right? I mean,
Yes.
IIT education was good enough. At some point, there was this realization that at some point you have to start somewhere. You can't just keep waiting that you know what you will start after this MBA degree, because there's always this notion.
Correct.
Coming from a non-business family background, there's always this notion that maybe an MBA degree will help you start something better, right? So yeah, in hindsight, that dropping out of the college is one of the best things. Had I not done that, I don't know, I probably would have been in US, and I'm so glad I'm back in India because this is where all the action is. And yeah, it has been an incredible journey so far. We just finished 10 years of White Lotus. Yeah, it's been great.
Okay. Was there any one specific incident during college days that radically shifted your mind? One incident.
I don't know if I can point out one incident. One is, I'll also go back to a little bit of childhood days.
Okay.
When I probably was in class 7, maybe at the age of 14,
Okay.
I had this very strong urge that I wanted to get out of this neighborhood. Okay, and these were the days when there was no internet, and TV probably had 2 channels. Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
Doordarshan and one
yeah,
more.
DD1, DD2, whatever.
DD1, DD2.
So there was no exposure, but this strong urge was there as a kid that I want to get out of this neighborhood. I want to see the world. I want to explore the world, not just otherwise typically how it was in those days, right? I mean, you grow up in the neighborhood, then you probably go to build a house in the same neighborhood, then your kids start growing in the same neighborhood, your whole relatives are in the same neighborhood. Somehow my thinking always that I wanted to get out of this neighborhood. So that was a very big realization to myself actually. Once I got into IIT also, the big realization and big changing point, if you ask me, would be the exposure in the campus here and the books I started reading. I mean, the non-academic books, right? The non-course related books I started reading that really shaped my mind.
Very
It made me realize there's a huge world out there, right?
Yes.
And a lot of things to explore. So, pivotal moment, changing moment in life, I would say back in the campus, yeah. Those interactions with people and.
As you mentioned, you went to the US as well.
Yeah.
Was there some shift there which urged you to come back to India and no, I think I'm missing something?
Actually, when you're bang on, you're right. When I went to US there for doing my MBA, August 2007, I went there, and yes, I attended my first classes and all of that. Then suddenly I realized that 2 things, right? Couple of things. One is there, with all due respect, I didn't really find their education system more advanced than India.
Okay.
I don't think it's true that it's more
Okay.
advanced than India. What I saw in that MBA course there, rather than giving more importance to the educational curriculum, they give more importance to the networking part of it. Like they put you in a room and they start teaching you networking. Normally, I'm usually pretty good with networking, so I was start questioning myself. Why am I paying some $100,000 and come all the way to US to learn networking? I mean, this is not what I want to do, right? And that was one thing. And second, this again overwhelming feeling was there that you're missing out on something because there's a lot more to do back in your country. Gone are those days where you feel that you have to get out of country to do something big. Actually, there's a lot more action happening here.
Yes.
Today, if you see today's generation, today the Gen Z, if you see, nobody is even talking about going to US. I mean, that ambition itself is not there. Everybody
Yes.
wants to do something here because they feel our country is far more superior, and all those countries want to have an exposure here. So that feeling was there a lot when I went to US. Maybe that was a big catalyst that, I want to get out of the here, made the decision very fast. Within 2 months I dropped out and came back. Yeah.
Very nice. What I have seen in recent times, I have come across a lot of people, who want to pursue their career studies, higher studies, going to US or any other part of the country.
Yeah.
But with a short span, they are all coming back.
Yeah.
I think, you have created that stepping stone in terms of you realized what. So until people, if you sit here and tell them about it, they don't realize.
Yeah.
But once you go there, you start realizing about it.
True, absolutely true. Yeah. In fact, it was not easy when I decided to come back.
Yeah.
I remember this uncomfortable conversation I had with my parents, right?
I mean, imagine.
For them, it was like, what's wrong with him? They are like, do you have any health problem? I mean,
what is the issue?
Is money an issue? Why are you coming back? I'm like, no, I don't like this. I mean, it was very tough for them to understand when I say I don't like this, right?
Okay.
For them, it was like one 22-year-old kid saying that, middle class fellow going there, we took an education loan and he went there and suddenly says, I don't like it. What does it mean he doesn't like it? Yeah. For them, it was always like, keep pushing, right? Keep pushing and make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, keep pushing is a good concept, but to what end, right?
Yeah.
So that feeling was, I mean, it was not easy to come back. After I came back, a lot of people thought that, oh, this fellow is doing something wrong and all of that. But now in hindsight,
I'm sure they would all realize that you were on the right path.
Yeah, true.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyway, one point is there what I wanted to bring in, but we'll discuss more about it a little later.
Sure.
I just want to understand, how did White Lotus begin?
That's an interesting story actually. So in 2012, at the age of 27, I sold my previous business.
Okay.
I had a health and fitness business which I sold, and obviously I came into some money. Having tasted entrepreneurship, obviously I wanted to do one more venture.
Okay.
What? I had no idea.
Okay.
The reason I exited that is because I was not enjoying that. So at the age of 25 when I started that, so in 1 year, one and a half year, I realized that at this age I'm not really enjoying this. Why should I waste prime of my age on this? So I sold off the business, made good amount of money, not knowing what to do next. But then typical middle class mentality, right? My parents constantly kept calling me every day that buy a home first. For them it was like, I think it still holds true that,
Correct.
buying a home is like a big milestone in your life, right?
It's an achievement. For example, in our parents' era, it's more of in their lifetime they want to buy one house, make a beautiful house, get some rental income, live there peacefully. That used to be the mindset earlier. So I'm sure I agree with you on that.
Maybe that probably holds good even today. I mean, maybe it has changed to multiple houses today. Maybe upgrading is a faster concept today.
Correct.
Those days it was one house, right? I mean, you build one house, you probably retire and die in that house, and probably you will hand it over to your kids, right? Maybe people dreamt of even getting their kids' marriages in that house, right?
Yes.
Today probably that concept has changed, but the fundamental concept of owning a home is still very dear, particularly in Indian context.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I read in a lot of articles, which says 99.1% people don't own their first home in India. So there's a huge scope for people to, buy homes.
Yeah. So during that time, actually, when parents wanted me to buy a home, right? I was living in Indranagar, and Defense Colony was one place which I was fascinated about. So I wanted to buy a home. I went there and started looking for apartments. At that time, I had like a 5 crore budget, which was like a very good budget actually back, I'm talking about 2012. Didn't find anything good. But in the whole process, I realized that, I have a very keen interest on architecture. I started looking at designs. I started looking where ventilation is coming from, ceiling heights, a lot of things which I didn't know about myself.
Okay.
Then I realized that maybe, I'm very curious at that time. I didn't find anything good. Long story short, I ended up buying a plot, and I thought I'll build a home myself. Got an architect on board, designed. Again, I was very keenly involved in the design process. Again, that is where I realized my interest in design. But I realized this house is too big. Then the architect gave an idea, why don't you build an apartment and sell off all the other apartments? Your penthouse might be free, your top floor might be free, and you get a free home.
Correct.
Did some math, felt like great, right? I mean, your parents want you to buy a home. You are getting a free home, you're getting your capital back, then you're free to do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
So that is where, construction started. Again, I was very curious after construction started. I remember I used to get up early in the morning and feel that, I want to be in the site by 9:30 a.m. because I want to see
what's happening,
what people do. It was like the engineer in me again came back. Then I started learning AutoCAD and started seeing what is BOQ, how is it calculated. It was very curious times. Of course, in this whole process, I forgot that what is a new business I want to start, but I was enjoying this part.
Okay.
So during that part, my security guard probably told me that, there are a lot of people who are asking that the building is coming up well, we want to buy. Obviously I wanted to sell, but I never thought that somebody will buy during construction, right? I didn't know the business model back then. So I thought, let me meet them, right? That time there was no office, so Indiranagar 100 feet road, Coffee Day was the office for everything.
I mean, most of the people love to go to that Coffee Day.
Yes,
I also have some fond memories of that
so,
place.
People didn't mind when I say coffee at Coffee Day, right? People were like, okay, nobody ever asked, you don't have an office, is it? So people came, we talked. Long story short, the market was quoting around 11,000-12,000 back then. I started quoting 16,000. I said, at the most they'll say no, right? I mean, let's see, because I anyway have the money to construct on my own. Surprisingly, people came back with 14,000, 15,000 offers. What I realized during that time is this is a very trust deficit industry. People like that somebody from IIT actually is doing this and
taking so much of interest in terms of creating those.
So for them it was like a pain point that, because they always had to deal with the so-called builders where they can't trust them. So they wait for the whole building to get over, then buy it, then break the place and redo it, right?
Correct.
Here they're able to buy during construction and customize the way they want.
Correct.
So I realized that this is a huge problem. So I did some research, I started talking to people and all of that. Then I realized there's a big problem in the market. Maybe at that time some sort of a bulb glue which said that maybe I found my next business, right? So I didn't really pursue it back then, honestly. Went ahead, the first apartment got sold, cash flow started coming in, then more inquiries started coming in. Then I realized, let's try to corporatize this a little bit, right? So put a board on the site and, had to come up with a company name. So came up with this White Lotus.
Yeah, that reminds me, White Lotus.
Yeah.
I mean, how did this company name came in?
It's interesting actually, why, I mean, very deep thinking, right? So I always go back to first principles thinking for everything. So if you ever seen a lotus flower, right? I mean, in the night actually it completely folds.
Correct.
And it goes back into that muddy water. And in the morning it comes back and you won't even realize that it went back into the water. It comes back fresh, like it's just born, right? Fresh, untouched with all the, but it always grows in that muddy water. So we are also like that. We are very authentic, we are fresh. We are not untouched, we are untouched or untarnished by all the distraction around. So that is how we formed White Lotus. That is how.
Yeah, I mean, my second question, most of your completed projects, have a unique name.
Yeah.
Like Tamara, Arvindaksha, Ohana.
Yeah.
What is the mind behind this?
See, like I told you before, we feel we are the custodians and creators of crafting life experiences. So we don't really consider ourselves like builders actually. We are not builders. We craft meaningful life experiences for you by creating a home for you where you can create a lot of memories together. For us, home is very intimate.